QX949, and it is a beast. I'll tell you, I had a heck of a time getting it out into the shop here today, in excess of 40 pounds. Getting that off the shelf, the wall of sound, and getting it in here for a look over. And it's one of those units that I bought because I couldn't resist it. It was in a thrift shop for about $30. And this is quite an interesting unit. As I said, it was produced in 1974 at the height of what I call the quadraphonic sound era in the United States. Now, what did that mean? Typically from the 1950s, of course, we started with high fidelity, which was producing sound that would give the broadest frequency range. So you wouldn't leave much on the cutting room floor when you were producing a record. And high fidelity was introduced to give those high frequencies and those low frequencies some play. A very important innovation in about the 1940s or so. Well, it took until the 1950s, late 1960s, until the concept of stereo really came to the fore. And that was simply, if you were going to have a band, an orchestra, an opera, or whatever, you would put a microphone on the left side of the stage, you put a microphone on the right side of the stage, maybe about 20 feet back from the audience, and you would have two distinct channels of sound that would have a slight bit of variance. The left channel might pick up more of the woodwinds and the violins, whereas the right channel might pick up more of the brass, the trumpets, the the trombones and things of that nature, the French horns. And when you recorded those two and you put it into a stereo playback device, if you had your speakers properly balanced on the side, then you would achieve what was called a symphony hall sound. You would have that balance, and there'd be just the slightest bit of difference between the two sides that it would realistically reproduce the sounds that you would hear if you were sitting in the audience. Well, you would think that that would be a great concept to sell. It would sell itself. Not the case. They actually had music stores and electronic stores, radio shops, where you would go in and they would put a stereophonic record on a record player, and you would sit in a room and they would demonstrate stereo to you. Yes, it had to be demonstrated. It had to be sold. And once it began to be sold, it caught on like hotcakes, and it became the industry standard. Well, audio and radio being what it is, people were never pleased with the state of the art. And there's always certain pioneers, especially ones in the late 1950s, that said, hey, let's have something, what we call the early forerunner surround sound. Instead of having just two recording microphones, suppose we had four. Two up front, one on each side, and two in the rear. Put the person in the middle in playback of that speaker system, and they would have sound all around them that they would be processing for an even more unique experience. Well, they pushed that concept like crazy, but it never really caught on, quadraphonic sound. One of the reasons is the record companies had to figure out, how do we produce quadraphonic sound on a record? You know, it took a long time until finally somebody figured out that in a stereo sound, if you cut a V into the record and you use the left side of the V for one channel and the right side of the V for the other, and you had basically a special needle, then you could hear two channels simultaneously through the speakers. Well, you can imagine doubling the complexity of how do you do that. And it was frustrating for record companies. They achieved it, but the cost of the gear in additional speakers and the special, what they call C4 decoding devices inside of these units made it very problematic, and it made it expensive. Yet, this is one of the units that represents the QX949 by Pioneer, probably the peak of quadraphonic. It was their top of the line unit, and for those who had quadraphonic records and properly position their speakers and things. It must have been a unique experience to sit in the middle of that and just be surrounded by sound. The earliest surround sound technology. Now in theaters and home, we take that for granted with theater systems that place speakers behind and in front, and we have a subwoofer, boom, 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 that's going off, and it just, well, I guess it gives you that experience of being right there. Whether you're flying a jet plane in a movie, following along with somebody flying a jet plane, explosions, things like that, you feel the rumble, you feel like you are fully engaged. Well, it never caught on, but a lot of these units are now collector's items. And my QX949, which we'll take a look at in a minute, really was the state of the art. It's heavy, it's a powerhouse, it had all the most expensive components at the time, and the thing works flawlessly today. There's extra buttons on here to turn for 2-channel or 4-channel stereo. There's a built-in C4 discrete modulator, the demodulator, that takes the signals and puts the 4 different channels out to the speaker. What's unusual about this unit is it had that C4, that demodulating device, built into the unit. Now look, I'm no expert. I might sound like what the hell I know about, but quadraphonic sound is indeed very foreign to me too. But the concept was, if you're putting in 4 inputs, you need to make sure that they're put out properly by the unit, and this device usually was something extra that you had to buy to plug into the back of your unit. The Panasonic QX949 had it built inside of the unit, thus saving you the hassle of having an extra unit. It produces 60 watts per channel on two channels, and if you're using a 4-channel, the quadraphonic sound, then you're getting 40 watts per channel. It doesn't sound like a lot by today's standards, but let me tell you, it really could carry, it could really carry the mail. I was very happy to get that unit. And again, if you're going to be buying vintage audio, and I do hope you buy an occasional piece just to preserve what is the glory days of silver face stereo systems in the 1970s and late 60s, early 70s into the 80s, make sure you buy on appearance. Working is okay. I mean, people can get it working if it's not working, but you can't undo scratches, you can't undo broken glass. There's a lot of things that can't be fixed. And when you go to resell it, people are going to buy condition, 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 condition. Well, the other unique feature that this unit had in it was something that almost looked like a 4-way oscilloscope, and it's something, as the 2 channels or the 4 channels are playing, it's putting out a visual ray out the side of the corner here, and the trick is you would balance those with these little buttons so that you had balanced sound all around you. And it gave a really cool effect, as you saw in the beginning. Well, I was very fortunate that most of the things worked on this and actually just need some minor cleaning of the knobs, a little bit of electronic cleaner in there. Don't use WD-40. You need to use something that's made for electronics. It needs a brush out, needs some compressed air, what we call a blow job in the business here, to get rid of that. But when you look inside, you'll see that the build quality is astounding on this unit. Let's take a look at it. Just on the face of it, you can see that beautiful Pioneer blue dial on there with the red indicator light for searching channels. And there's a lot of buttons on here. CD4 separation for separating to try to get them to sound differently, I would imagine, on a channel. Remember, I'm no expert on this. Front and rear for plugging in your phone jacks there for listening. You have the power button up there, the indicator levels where you can adjust the size and brightness of the what we call the scope over here. I call it more like a radar screen. You have 2 banks for speakers, a left and right front, left and right rear that you can see right here. In addition, there's a loudness so that you can get this, if you have that, you can really punch the sound out. Dolby, various tape inputs. Here's where you have the 2-channel and the 4-channel over here for stereophonic and quadraphonic. And then a few of the other buttons I'm not really too familiar, but you could have auxiliary feed with a tape deck. You could have 2 phonograph inputs. This was a high-end device. And you also had AM, FM mono, and the auto is FM. And it's a very, very handsome look. We look inside, look at how well assembled this unit is. You have a shielded tuner block here that is going to prevent a lot of signals from entering into the tuning capacitor that's underneath here on the side. It's those blades that look like they turn. You have a monster power transformer, which is probably at least 60% of the weight of this device. You have 4 gigantic filter capacitors here, one for each, for the left side, right side, stereo, and if you're running quadraphonic, it filters the power in so you get the cleanest sound. They're very high quality. And the whole thing was made to be repaired. You would just switch out boards, and over here is the amplifier section. Again, that's shielded, and it's in beautiful condition. If we just go to kind of stick the top, just sit that in place there. It has a very handsome cabinet. It does need a thorough cleaning, but you can see the tremendous shape that this is in. There's no dings, no scratches, or anything on here, which I really like. So it is a powerhouse. Let's look at the back. And of all the units I possess, this is probably the second most complicated. You have your 4 speaker output terminals there. You have your antenna wires. This is the AM handle. They call it a handle speaker here that's built in for AM. And you have various tape players if you have a 4-channel, and there were 4-channel tapes. You could put double them in. You had the Dolby inputs. I mean, it's just amazing the things that are here. Standard, just multiple tape decks. You had phono 1 and 2 for 2 phono players and auxiliary. And if you had two track tapes or stereo, you would plug the outputs into there. So quite a unit for grounding. And then if you wanted to output the 4-channel sound, you had a 4-channel multiplexer output there. So yeah, they didn't spare anything on this. There's a built-in fuse. You can remove a fuse to change it here, and it tells you this is the 4-channel C4 demodulating device back here that allows it to output the quadraphonic sound. You can plug switched equipment in, so if you turn off the switch to the unit, it'll cut off whatever's powered there, and then you have the unswitched here that will keep power going, and it won't turn off. So really quite a state-of-the-art device. Well, let's have a little bit of fun. Let's tune up the dial here. We'll cut over to the AM. See if we get anything in that. We do have the what they call the handle antenna in the back, and I'll tell you, there's not much to AM these days.
You know what? That's true. That would be true. Your own ingenuity, your own resources. And one last one. And listen very carefully. This is the climax.
See how the sound modulates? It's on the stereo setting. If I was to move it to the 4-channel, it'll try to duplicate and try to put out like it's putting out 4-channel sound, but of course it's just duplicating a mirror image of what's above.
People lack the discipline.
Looks like a radar screen, doesn't it?
Fastest growing mobile provider in the nation. It's easy to see.
True, but we want credit for the stuff we do. That's how we are. We want, as the song says, to be praised like we should.
The fumble occurred at the Denver 3-yard line. The Broncos recovered the ball and secured their second consecutive Super Bowl.
Now the signal acquisition is pretty good. I don't have a good antenna on it. It has the built-in, you can add an AM, But AM's pretty much dead except for news these days.
Unbelievable are the words that have become part of our new normal. And if you're retired, about to retire, or lost your job, you can add going to be in that posture again until January 19th. And according to leaders,
the CDC says the new proposed measure is mainly due to the increase of infections.
March that it's very hard to see a resurgence of inflation, and we believe that.
Mexican music station.
the glass safely to work comes with
start. And then
you can hear a little bit of static in the background, but that can be cured with a better antenna. Plus I have like CFL lights on here which put out a frequency buzz. Good antenna cures a tremendous amount of problems.
February 6, 2019. Nothing worked before. Left there and never smoked again.
Este hombre tenía otra novia, el cual pues lo habría.
Pretty cool unit, huh? Look at the beautiful shape that it's in. Let's roll down to the FM now. Roll down the aisle because the FM, it could be better, but it'll be okay for our purposes right now. What we need to do is a good cleaning and lubrication.
To be able to scan at high resolution.
You can hear how clean that sound is, though.
Because if you do identify something like the B117 mutation, and you notice, hey, there's something going on in this part of the country, and
nice clean sound.
Variant, to pay attention to.
It also has a signal meter at the right to help you dial in visually your best grab of the station.
En los supermercados me regresan 3%. Cuando pongo gasolina,
very clean when you have a good close signal.
You're listening to Grace to You with John MacArthur on Family Radio. John's current stuff.
This is the classic music.
From just showing up, so they've been working,
washing hands, and
so signal acquisition is pretty good. It's got what they call a big 3-gang tuner for bringing in signals.
Elected officials to protect America.
You know how clean that is? Luckily, we don't have to do a lot of work on this unit.
Air and water quality.
Typical stereo service. Pretty darn clean. Don't want the YouTube music police after me.
100.1 KZST. I'm Kim Holloway, and last time I got to sit in my hairdresser's chair, I said, "Ooh, make me look."
As we finish going up the dial here, allow you guys to see the tuning meter, how that tunes. As the station gets louder and gets tuned in better, the strength meter on the bottom shows that. This is pre-digital age. See that signal, and then you put the top one to a micro, adjust that right to the middle of that rectangular block up top. We got a little bit of station drift here, so the whole thing needs to be adjusted.
Es pobreza también, por favor. Entonces, Garbanzo prefiere.
But you can see the stereo light going. Quite a unit.
Is KSRO.
We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms. As we reconvene in this chamber, the world will again witness the resilience and strength of our democracy, even in the wake of unprecedented violence.
Pretty cool, I'd have to say, a pretty cool unit all in all. Then a big question you guys are asking, Rosie, are you going to invest in a quadraphonic record and additional speakers for that? The answer is no, but I will be able to demonstrate when we finally get it up on the wall of sound. We'll input a little bit of copyright-friendly music in, and we will let her rip. So, we got a little project here in the shop, the Pioneer QX949. Luckily, it's not one of our, we've had some barn burners here that we have done before, and some of them have taken months and months. So this should really be kind of a one-day wonder. We got to be careful, though, because a lot of components are packed into here, and the chances for short circuits are very high, so we want to be ultra careful. You want to be ultra careful, too, around electronic devices. If you don't have the knowledge or the skill, they can be very dangerous. Even solid-state stuff that runs on relatively low voltages within most of the circuits. Beware, though, with 120 AC, common household current, it still can be a very dangerous thing. Thanks for being along as I introduce the Pioneer QX949 1974 quadraphonic sound, top of the line Pioneer. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your thumbs up are appreciated, and see you next time in the shop.